Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 711, and today's date is July 8th, 2015. And the title of this episode is The Economy is in a Death Spiral. Prepare for the Big Event. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. That interview with G. Edward Griffin is now uploaded to YouTube. All you need to do is go to YouTube and type in X22 Report Spotlight. It's a different channel than the X22 Report channel, and it will come right up. Or you can come to the x22report.com site. You will see the interview on the right-hand side, and there's also a link there that you can click right over to the X22 Report Spotlight channel if you'd like to. Let's get into the current economic collapse news. Now, we understand the Greek government, the central banking system, they reported that the banks were going to open up on Monday. Then they said Tuesday. Then they said, no, it's going to open up on Wednesday. Now we're getting word that the banks are not going to open up on Friday. Now, I understand why they picked Friday, because they want to see what the reaction is of the people. Because when they open up the banks on Friday and they see this bank run, if there is one, a lot of people have taken out their money. A lot of people already knew this was coming. But those people that were sitting on the sidelines, they might run to the bank and say, you know something, I want all my money out of the bank right now. And it makes sense for them to do it on a Friday, because this way they can close it back up on Saturday and keep it closed the rest of the week, the rest of the weekend, and say, you know something, at this point in time, we're going to need to keep the banks closed. But we're going to have to watch and see how this turns out. Now, Cyprus submitted a request for a 3-year loan facility from the European Stability Mechanism. And he also promised to implement tax reforms, pension measures at the beginning of next week. Now, I don't know if this is propaganda where he's saying he's agreeing to all this, because they just have a referendum saying that, yeah, the people don't want any of this. And now everyone is saying that he's asking for a bailout, basically, an ESM bailout. And he's agreeing to all these terms, which makes no sense whatsoever. Just like the central bankers like to tell us before the referendum that everyone was saying yes to it. And of course, we had that one interview where it didn't even make sense, where the person was saying, yeah, the people are going to suffer, but who cares? We have to stay with the European Union. It made no sense. They voted for Tsipras because he promised them no more austerity. We're not going to touch your pensions. We're not going to accept any of this from the central bankers. And I can't believe all of a sudden he's going back on his word. It makes no sense at this point, because he has the backing of the people. Now, the Greek creditors, they have scenarios prepared in detail for the Greek exit. Should the country leave the euro and move to a single currency, they already have this planned out. And we knew this from a couple of reports ago that I did, that the IMF is already prepared for this. Now, of course, they came out and said, well, we're prepared for both ways. Well, they really didn't have to prepare for the other way, because they would just stay with the euro and they would accept the central banking term, or they would come to some type of agreement, and there's nothing really to prepare for. So what they're really doing is they're preparing right now what the impact would be if they left the euro. And we're getting word that Greece is already preparing an alternative currency. Latvia's central bank chief called the introduction of a new currency in Greece the most realistic scenario. Greece will be forced to return to the drachma, or at least will be compelled to issue some manner of scrip in the face of an acute cash shortage and worsening credit crunch. And we see Latvia's central bank chief says the Greek government is indeed right now preparing for the launch of an alternative currency. And what's very interesting, there was a tourist in Greece, and they took a snapshot of the menu in one of the Greek restaurants, and it seems that they're pricing things already in the drachma. And they might be getting ready, getting prepared to go ahead with this. Now, we know the U.S. government central bankers, the European Union central bankers, are not going to go for this. They will do whatever they possibly can to stop it. I mean, look at Ukraine. They were sitting there going, should we go with the EU or should we go with Russia? Well, we looked at the EU. We see Greece is in a huge amount of debt. Cyprus was in a huge amount of debt. Then the banks were locked down. People got their money stolen. And we see France, Italy, and other countries teetering. Should we stay with the euro? Shouldn't we leave the euro? We're in a huge amount of debt. People have no jobs. Austerity is being implemented all around Europe. So they decided to go with Russia. Now we have Greece doing the same exact thing. They're saying, okay, we're going to stay with the euro. And other people inside the government are saying that we're going to leave the euro. And it looks like they are making preparations because, as we can see, Tsipras signed the deal with Putin. And he knew if they stay with the euro, do you really think that deal was going to stand? So that is an indicator that they are leaning towards Russia. But what's very interesting is back in March, Victoria Nuland, she's the one who orchestrated the coup d'etat in Ukraine when the government decided to go along with Russia, and then all of a sudden we had massive protests and the elected government was thrown out and a puppet government was put into place. Well, Victoria Nuland was in Athens in March, and she met with Tsipras, and wherever she goes, it seems like there's some type of problems in the country, like a coup d'etat. And we can see right now, she might have given Tsipras 2 ultimatums in Athens last March. Surrender to the Troika and remain allied with US-dominated NATO, and continue with the anti-Russian agenda, or we will replace you. We will replace your government. We will cause havoc in the country like Ukraine. And we need to watch this situation very carefully because a couple of reports ago, I talked about a gunshot to the head of Tsipras if he doesn't follow along. And right now, the people of the country, the government of the country, are not going along with the U.S. government central bankers and their plan. And if they pivot towards Russia, Greece is in a strategic location. They also belong to NATO, and what happens then? Do they leave NATO? Now Russia has a footing in this area. And I don't believe the U.S. government central bankers are going to let this happen. Now the question is, did Varoufakis know this? Tsipras knew? And is this why Varoufakis decided to resign? Because he knew what was coming, and he didn't want to be a part of it. He knew this coup d'etat was going to be pushed if the people voted no. Very interesting. Now, here in the United States, what are we seeing? Well, we are seeing more layoffs. Major corporations continually laying off, not hundreds, not 200, not thousands, tens of thousands of people. I mean, Hallmark is going to close their distribution center and lay off about 570 people. Microsoft is going to lay off another 7,800 people. Last year, it was 18,000. This year, 7,800. I mean, they surpassed their all-time high of layoffs, which was back in 2009 when they laid off 5,800. How is this a recovery? Shouldn't the company be expanding? Because more people are working, more people are spending. Companies now are doing much, much better. Look at the stock market. But we see the opposite occurring. We see companies are not doing well. And the Department of Labor announced that they're going to raise the overtime threshold. The Department of Labor recently proposed raising the overtime threshold from $23,600 to $50,400, making this only the second time they have addressed this issue since 1975. Now, why would they do that at this point in time? Well, first, most likely they're trying to get money into people's pockets so they can go out and spend, because people are not spending. People don't have work. Secondly, I think they're trying to alter the employment numbers, because a lot of companies will say, well, we're not going to give these people time and a half. We rather hire another person part-time and pay these people. Now, again, a part-time job adds as a full-time job. And I think they're trying to prop up the unemployment numbers. I think this is what they're trying to do. So either case, they're trying to put money into people's pockets so they go out and spend, and they're trying to pump up their employment numbers, because what we're seeing right now is more people are dropping out of the workforce because they cannot find that job. And these numbers are not making sense anymore because what's going on in the real world, in retail, in people buying homes, in people buying cars. This is all coming to a screeching halt. And they know this, and they want to keep the system going for a little bit longer. They want control when this system comes down, because they want everything to be blamed on another country or group. They don't want to be blamed for this. Because again, once this war is all over, after this big event, because that's what's going to happen, they want to restart the entire system. Again, the population will be reduced. They'll say everyone has to rebuild, and we need to start with a new currency. And they'll start this whole thing once again. This time it might be a one world currency. We don't know. And it's our job to stop this. We see that the American dream right now to get this job, to save money, is not working out. The young people right now are having a very difficult time finding work. Employment in the 16 to 19 age area has been dropping for 35 years and fell off a cliff in 2008. Employment in the 20 to 24 and 25 to 54 topped out in 2001 and has never recovered since 2008. The only age where they're finding jobs is 55 years and older, because those people who are retiring can't afford to live. So they need to go to get the second job. And a lot of employers are saying, you know something? We know we can depend on these older folks. We know they have the ability to stay on. They need the job, and the younger people are just out of luck. And there's just not enough jobs to go around. And it's making it very difficult for everyone. We're not in a recovery whatsoever. We are in a collapse situation. Those college graduates coming out of school, they can't find their full-time work. This is why they're modifying their student loans. This is why the government central bankers have modified everything. Think about this. They modified the automobile industry and how you get the loans. We'll accept anybody. They modified the real estate, mortgages. You have a heartbeat, subprime, no big deal, no money down, we will accept you. They are at the end game right now. They're doing whatever they possibly can to keep the system running. And they don't care how they do it whatsoever. Now, we had a very strange thing happen today. The New York Stock Exchange completely shut down for 3 hours plus. Now, of course, they were saying this is a technical issue. Other people were saying cyber attack. And we have to remember, this entire system is going to be used to show that another group or country decimated our economy. You have to remember, the New York Stock Exchange, the NASDAQ, the BAT system, they all have kill switches now. And we noticed the stock market was plummeting, was completely taking a huge dive when it shut down, and ended up at about 261 in the negative. Now, would have dropped further? Did they actually use the kill switch to stop it because they knew what was happening? Because the high-frequency traders, the plunge protection team, couldn't keep the market up? Because we see what's happening in China right now. They're completely falling apart. But we have to remember, the country that holds the gold is going to be the winner. And we know China, Russia, and many other countries have been accumulating a massive amount of gold. United States? Well, they lost the audit for the Fed. They don't know how much gold. They won't let anyone in. Other countries have been asking for the gold. They're not really returning it. So we know at this point in time, most likely, there is no gold. And at the same time, yesterday, we saw the precious metal market being slammed down, and all of a sudden, then there was a shortage of silver eagles. And they will not start distributing them once again until August. So we have a shortage of silver. We have the market shut down. We have China's market collapsing because we're all interconnected here. But what's very interesting about all of this is that Anonymous posted a tweet yesterday, and the tweet said, "Wonder if tomorrow is going to be a bad day for Wall Street. We can only hope." Now, did they have something to do with this? Maybe. And I noticed that the corporate media started out saying this is a cyber attack, and then we had Jay Johnson and other individuals come out saying, no, this is not a cyber attack. They're not ready. If this is out of their control, they don't want this system coming down because they're going to make a lot of money coming on the system coming down. They know exactly when it is, and they're going to short everything. Oh no, they're prepared for this, but it has to be on their terms. Because if this was a true shutdown of the market, they would have been blaming everyone. I think this was completely unexpected. I think they didn't really know what was going on. And they weren't ready for it. I'm sure people made a lot of money when it started coming down. But I think they were so scared, they flipped the kill switch and just shut it down and said, just call it a technical glitch for right now. And I think the system was completely falling apart, and the high-frequency trading and the plunge protection team could not stop it. But we'll have to wait and see. Because as we know, they will blame this on another country. And this is why every single person needs to be prepared. Look how fast this can happen. At a moment's notice, you think everything is fine, everything is going perfectly, and then all of a sudden, the New York Stock Exchange shuts down. And then we had other things occurring. The Wall Street Journal was shut down. We then had nationwide computer glitch in United Airlines. Flights were not taking off. All of this happening at the same time. This is why you don't know when it's coming. This is why you need to be prepared. Think about it. You know winter's coming. You know it's going to be cold. You don't know if there's going to be a really bad storm, but you prepare for that. You know you have warm clothes. You know you're going to have to use heat. You know the power might go out because of a bad storm. So you stock up on certain items. Well, we know a collapse is coming. This is why everyone needs to stock up on food, medical supplies, have a weapon to protect your family, keep gold, silver, someplace where it's safe. Don't tell people where it is. Have toiletries. If you're diabetic, if you have a heart problem, have extra medicine. If you have not prepared for any of this, you can go to lifereliance.com. They have a huge amount of pre-made survival food and other supplies already done. It will speed up the process. And you can go there, you can pick out your package, and you can order it. It's easy. If you've been continually bringing in supplies, continually do this. Don't forget about water. Do not stop, because we know we're coming very close for them bringing down this entire thing. And what's interesting about this, when all this is occurring, we had a report come out saying a cyber attack on the U.S. East Coast could cost the economy $1 trillion. They're saying if a cyber attack would shut down the United States power grid, it would completely decimate the economy. This report is coming from the University of Cambridge Centre for Risk Studies and the Lloyd's of London insurance market, and they've outlined the scenario of an electricity blackout that leaves 93 million people in New York City and Washington, D.C. without power. Now, they came up with this saying that it is technologically possible and is assessed to be within the once in a 200-year probability for which insurers should be prepared for. This is a report that was just released. So they're saying, yes, this can definitely happen. And if there's a power outage, make sure you have the ability to have light, to have a radio. I mean, there's so many things you need to do before this happens. A lot of you who've been following me have already done it and continue to do it, because we can see at this point in time, the time is getting closer. And like I said, they want this to come down controlled by them. And we see the Fed saying, yes, we see that despite the global turmoil, what's happening in Greece, the economy not recovering, they might increase the interest rates in September. Now, I said this in my other report that I do believe that they will raise the interest rates, and they'll bring it up a couple basis points, and I believe they'll do this to start the collapse. Now, they're going to say there's an improvement, it's a recovery, because this is always what they say. And what will happen is the economy will start to slow and slide, and then they will use the event to blame it on another country, another group. And this will be controlled by them. And we can see they are preparing and getting ready for this. And we can see a lot of countries right now, they are making sure they are protected. The BRICS countries are going to start using their local currencies for mutual settlements. And they're going to do it very soon. So they're going to completely bypass the dollar. All of these countries will no longer use the dollar, and they're going to use their local currencies. What does this tell us? This tells us they're nervous, they're afraid, and they're insulating themselves from the private Western Central Bank countries. They know this is coming. They know what's going on. They understand. And we can see from all these countries, they are getting ready for it. Now, I know we talk a lot about encryption, and it continually keeps coming up in the corporate media. And the government officials or the government employees, they're trying to push on us where they want everything completely open. They want free access to everything so they can spy on every single person. I mean, we have the FBI director, James Comey. He's testifying at the Senate hearing, and he's saying that he wants backdoor keys to the encrypted software so they can look at what is going on, so they can stop terrorism. Well, I hate to say this, but encryption ciphers, they've been around for thousands of years. This is nothing new. And if you are a true terrorist, or a criminal in that matter, why would you plan something over the internet? You know the FBI, DHS, NSA, CIA are listening. And if you were going to communicate, you would develop your own encryption where the government officials, government employees, don't have the method or the key. So what FBI Director James Comey is saying, it doesn't even make sense. Because if he wants all encryption open to all this software, the actual terrorists would make their own and bypass the open encryption. Or they won't even use the internet. They will use another method, maybe pen and paper, maybe another way where the government agencies cannot find what they're saying. This goes against everything the founding fathers say. And they knew back then that governments would use this. Remember what Benjamin Franklin said. Those who would give up essential liberty to purchase a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. This is what James Comey wants us to do. He wants you to give up your liberty and purchase some of their safety. We are experiencing exactly what the founding fathers experienced. The government is trying to convince us that there's a threat and they will protect us. So we have to give up our liberties. We have to give up our rights. Because what he's saying here is, and this is his argument, that he needs to protect the public. The government sometimes needs to be able to see an individual's stuff, though only under appropriate circumstances and with appropriate oversight. And we know from the NSA, CIA, DHS, there is no oversight. Basically, what's going to happen is he wants everything open. And we know this will not work. Because what happens is, when they have backdoors into everything, they're not looking for terrorists. Because, as we know, the terrorists are the government. They're the ones, these agencies, they're the ones who are creating all this. This is why the FBI, DHS, NSA are 0 for 40 or 0 for 41. They don't have the ability to detect anything because it's coming from within. So they just use fear-mongering. And when there is a real type of terrorism, they never even know about it. I mean, the NSA has been spying on everyone. They've had backdoors. And if you believe the official story, why did they stop the Boston bombing? Because it was an inside job. They're the ones who planned all of this. But Director Comey is completely wrong, and he never gives the other side of the argument. The risks that are associated with giving the government free access to encrypted communication. Because when you weaken the security, what happens is real criminals find the back door and they take the information. And we see from all of this is that if the government has the keys to your information, this will not help whatsoever. This will just leave all the systems wide open for the real criminals. I'm not talking about the terrorists. I'm talking about the criminals that want to find out information about people or steal investment information. They will find those back doors and they will use them. We see now that the government is trying to push through CISA. They're doing whatever they possibly can. They use these cyber attacks whenever possible. And what we're seeing right now is the government employees tacked the Cybersecurity Information Act to a defense bill to avoid a debate on the measure. They didn't want anyone looking at it or debating on it because when you read it, it gives the government a backdoor channel for government agencies to retrieve, analyze, and store enormous volumes of personal data. And since information sharing would be voluntary, the government would be able to obtain all of this information without a warrant. This is why they're trying to keep it a secret. This is why they're trying to sneak it through. It all failed. And this is why they don't want to debate it, because when people really look at this, they're going to scratch their heads and say, whoa, wait a minute. The companies aren't liable. You don't need a warrant. You're going to get all this information that you're not getting from the NSA spying. And again, how does this help? Having my shopping information, having my bank account information, having my investment information, this does not help stop cyber attacks whatsoever. It doesn't give them any other information on how they can stop it. Because a real criminal is looking for that back door that James Comey wants to open up. That's the problem. You don't need my information. But again, the government is not here to find terrorists, not here to find criminals. They're here to spy on everyone because they want to know what everyone is doing. Now, we see out in Ukraine, they have a payment coming up the end of July. And it looks like they might not be able to pay this. But the IMF is not too concerned. They will issue more debt to them because they need Ukraine operating. It's a strategic location. They're making their move for a major offensive in the southeastern region, and they want this country operating. Not like Greece, where they did the actual opposite. They wouldn't allow Greece to, modify any of the terms or do anything. Ukraine, they're able to modify the terms. And they're keeping it secret because of the gag order. We see Russia right now is going to launch space-based missile warning system. Now again, Putin understands what's going on. He realizes that the central bankers are not going to give up. Now he's been, trying to stop what the central bankers, U.S. government, are trying to do. I mean, look at Syria back in 2013. Look at Ukraine. They're provoking him, but he's not reacting. He's staying very calm. He's saying he wants peace. And that's all he talks about is peace. And all the central bankers are talking about, they're talking about war. We see Iran, if the P5+1 deal goes through and all sanctions are removed, Iran is going to turn to the Eurasian Economic Area. They want to join the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. They're not going to be going with the private Western Central Bank system. They're going to be turning away just like every other country. And I think this is a huge problem. And this could be part of the deal for this P5+1 because as we know, the U.S. government central bankers want them to implement a central bank in the country and put all their natural resources on the dollar. And this might be a problem at this point. The government, I'm going to call them the People's Government of Libya, they were in peace talks with the UN and the puppet government that was thrown out of Tripoli. And they decided to reject the UN peace plan because what happens is it puts the other government in power. And it removes their power. And this government was put into place by the people of Libya. And again, what we're seeing here, as we're seeing throughout the Middle East, the people are rising up. Look at Yemen, look at Libya, look at Lebanon, look at Iraq. It's not the Islamic State. It is the people of these countries. They want their countries back. And this is why we see all of this. The proxy army for the United States government central bankers and other countries, they were put in there to create chaos. But most of the forces are in Syria because what they're doing is they're using that to get after Assad. We see Syria ratified a $1 billion credit line from Iran to help out here. And the BRICS system is saying, hey, we may provide reconstruction aid to Syria to help the Syrian government. Now, the United States government central bankers are not going to like this. They want their infrastructure destroyed. They want the Syrian people, the Syrian government to suffer. So Assad says, I give, here, take the country. Or Assad runs from the country and the U.S. and other nations are able to take it over. This has nothing to do with terror. Putin understands who controls the proxy army of the United States government. He realizes what they're doing. He's not sitting there. That's why he comes out with the statements that all countries should be behind Assad and join to fight this terror threat. Now, it makes no sense why, if this is a true terror threat, why the United States wouldn't include Russia, wouldn't include China, wouldn't include Assad to get rid of this terrible, terrible threat. And if you notice, they didn't include them whatsoever. Why? Why didn't they want them involved? Because they knew they wouldn't be able to get Assad removed. And this is the play. The goal is always the same. Putin came out after Obama came out and said, listen, Assad, you need to step down. This is the only way this is going to work. Putin came out and said that no one has the right to ask Assad, the legally elected president, to step down and resign. And guess what? No one has the right. It's almost like Assad coming out to President Obama saying, I want you to resign. He has no right, and neither does the president. Why should he resign? So far, everything we've seen in Syria was because of the Free Syrian Army, was because of the proxy army, was because of the civil war that was created by the United States government central bankers. This is what we're seeing. Now, there is a report that the proxy army for the United States government central bankers took down the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights Monitor. Why would they take that down? Because they don't want them monitoring what's really going on. Because what they're getting is reports from the Free Syrian Army, from the proxy army, that they're doing horrific things. They're using chlorine gas. This is nothing new. If we go back in time, the Free Syrian Army used sarin gas in Syria, and of course blamed it on Assad. The proxy army right now is using chlorine gas in Syria, and of course they're blaming it on Assad. This is how they do it, because they're trying whatever they possibly can to remove Assad, and they're not going to stop. Now, here in the United States, the U.S. Senate wants to censor terrorist activity on social media sites. They want the social media sites to report anything that has to do with terrorist activity. So they want them to be snitches. And what are the parameters of this? Because what constitutes terrorist activity on a social media site? They haven't really laid that out at this point. And we can see they want Facebook, Twitter, YouTube to report content that is believed to be connected to terrorist activity. Not proof, not facts, but just believed. The bill would require any online company that obtains actual knowledge of any terrorist activity. Well, what does that mean? And right now, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, they're really not going along with this. A lot of them are saying no comment on this, because basically what they're doing is they're inching another step towards privatizing some of its snooping to internet companies. That's exactly what's going on here. And we know most of these Twitter, Facebook sites, they're created with software that allows them to create many of these sites. And it's linked, and it's very hard to find out who actually started them. Because why would a true terrorist organization publish everything they're doing? It makes no sense. It's almost like a criminal who's going to rob a bank. Would you put that on the internet, on your social media account, saying, yeah, I'm thinking about robbing a bank, I'm going to rob a bank, this bank looks good? No, you wouldn't do that. It makes no sense. And all of this doesn't make sense, and this is how you know it's completely fake, phony, and false. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.